I have got a new camera and a new microphone, and I'm trying it out for the first time. So let's clip it on and let's see if the audio quality is any better. And hopefully it'll make it a little bit more pleasurable when I'm editing, and I don't have to edit out seagull noise or dog noise. Welcome to MoggyBoxCraft. I'm Deborah. Today I am upcycling my outdoor decking table. Let's get started by taking a little look at the outdoor table and how it looked before. It's been outside in our decking for a very long time. It is quite an old table and I've painted it a few times. And of course, because it's on the decking and has plants on it and I water them, the water dribbles through and there's an awful lot of cracks appearing, there's a lot of flaky paint, and we're going to have to get rid of that. So let's get started with this monstrosity of an upcycle. So the first thing I'm going to need is a sander, because I'm going to have to get rid of all this paint chips and paint flakes on the table. So I've got 40 and 80 grit sandpaper. We're going to start with the 40 grit sandpaper because it's a little bit rougher. And I thought that would be an easier way to get all those paint flakes off. So after a bit of time, wasn't working so great and I pretty much ran out of 40 grit sandpaper. So I moved on to the rotary sander. I don't know what it's called. It's a round sander rather than a straight sander. It kind of goes round. Does that make sense? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below what this thing is really called. Anyway, I switched over to the round sander. I also have 40 grit sandpaper for this one, so I thought I would just go ahead and use that. So after a lot of sanding, and once most of the paint was off the tabletop, I kind of tilted my sander and tried to do the edges, the paint between the bits of wood and the planks of wood on the table. And then after that didn't really work, I took a scraper to the edges. So after removing all the paint from the tabletop, or all, most of it, and all the flaky paint, I discovered the wood was quite soft and a little bit rotten. So I got this wet rot wood hardener. It's pretty volatile stuff, guys. So if you're going to do this, wear gloves, wear a mask, do it in a ventilated area because it's really pungent. So using the lid, I've just put a little bit of the liquid in at a time, and make sure you use an old paintbrush, because I don't know how you'd clean a paintbrush after using it with this stuff. I've just used an old one so I can throw it out after. So I applied the hardener with the brush to any soft areas of the wood. Admittedly, that was a lot of the table, but better to cover more of it than less. So once that had dried overnight, it was time to fill all the gaps in the wood. So for this next bit, I don't have wood filler, and I don't really want to buy wood filler. I do, on the other hand, have poly filler, and I just figured, well, there's no point buying anything extra. I may as well just use poly filler. Surely it's just going to do just as good a job. So that's what I did. It's not like I'm going to varnish this table afterwards. You're not going to see the wood at all. I'm going to paint over it with a colour, so hopefully it should work just fine. I popped on a pair of gloves, and I just found this was much easier to apply with my fingers. Just get a lump of the poly filler, squish it onto the table and just squish it around with my fingers. I think that helped me get it into the cracks a little bit better and just smooth it out to some degree. It's not going to matter too much anyway because we're going to sand it when it's all dry. So after the poly filler was dry, it was time to sand again. But this time I used the 80 grit sandpaper. I probably would have used even a higher grade of sandpaper, but I didn't have any. And I'm not buying any more for this project because it's a lockdown project. We're just making do with what we have. So I just gave it a good sand until I was happy with the smoothness, or as happy as I was going to be with the smoothness. So now we're on to the best bit of the project. Time to paint. Cover up all the mess that table looks like, and we'll never know it's under there. Again, I'm just going to use paint I already have. Don't be surprised if it's different brands or different finishes of paint. I'm just using what I have and just trying to use it up. Waste not, want not. So my plan for the table is to paint half of a diagonal with purple and the other half diagonal with stripes. But you'll see what I mean when we get there. So I've started with this matte purple paint for walls and ceilings. So for the striped side, I'm going to start with this matte white paint. Don't worry about making it neat, just get the paint on there. So next I'm going to use this matte black paint between the white stripes, so we should be able to get it all neatened up a bit. So after the paint had dried on the top, I flipped the table over so I could paint underneath of it. So using the same paint, I just repeated the whole process and just repeated the pattern underneath so it would match up on the top side and the underside. That makes sense? I hope so. I've finished the base coat on the bottom of the table, so I'm now going to wait for this to dry. So after a lot of painting, well, I did have been a lot of painting in lockdown. What am I on about? It's all I've bloody done. I'm over painting. I want to do different crafts now. So to seal the purple paint in, I have this varnish. So this is supposed to be part of a two-step process for a crackle effect paint. But I thought, well, it's varnish, I may as well use it. It'll do the same job, hopefully. So I've just used it by itself as a varnish. Yeah, it'll be fine. What's the worst that could happen? And as a top coat for the white, I'm using this gloss white paint. So this is the part you need to be a little bit careful and a little bit more accurate, and don't just throw the paint everywhere, because gloss paint takes much longer to dry. So if you make a mistake and you need to then touch it up on the other side with black, like the black paint, you're gonna have to wait a lot longer. I just tried to be as careful as I could. There's the odd little blob here and there, it went AWOL, but don't worry about that. Well, I certainly didn't. And then as a top coat to seal it in the black paint, I've used this satin black paint and did the same thing as I did with the white stripes. Just be very careful, try not to smudge your edges. So after I finished painting the underneath of the table, flipped the table back round. It had scuffed a little bit when I turned it over, so I thought I'd touch up the purple paint and then sealed it in using the same varnish. So after I'd done the varnish on the purple, I went and did the top coats on the black and white stripes on the top of the table. So to make this design a little bit more interesting, and because I just can't help myself when it comes to gold, I just want to put gold on everything. You could use silver if you preferred. I'll stick to gold. I'm going to use this paint by Ardent Bright in gold and antique gold. So I've just poured a little bit of each of them onto a Tupperware lid. And then using a sea sponge, I've just dabbed the gold paint on and just dabbed it up the diagonal centre between where the stripes and the purple meet. And then to get in the hard to reach places, I've just taken a little brush, brushed on the gold paint and then dabbed over it with a sea sponge. So after I dabbed gold on everywhere that I wanted it, I just went back in again with that same varnish and just coated that all over the gold area just to make sure it would be sealed in. And with that, the table is complete. So without further ado, here's my beautiful outdoor montage, table montage. If you've enjoyed this video, leave a like, leave a comment, share and subscribe. I mean, of course, subscribing is optional, but it is very much appreciated. So thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye! going with my hands? What am I doing? Table montage. What is my life?